Let's talk about how high the bar is set for your business.
Right.
Your CFO, the group CFO, Jamie Miller, said recently that GE Aviation, I think I'm getting the quote right here, is pretty recession resilient. Is she right?
Well, I would say that the balance of business is very favorable for us. If you think about it, we have a great production run going. We're actually going to increase production by 15% or more this year. We have an incredible aftermarket in service. You know what I mean? So $177 billion of commercial service backlog as we speak. And we're in the middle of a real growth market when it comes to military. We're seeing 10% compounded annual growth rates in our military business through the middle of the next decade. So if you look at the balance of all three of those, it says that if you have a recession perhaps in the commercial market on new make equipment, but people are still flying, and we represent 2 out of every 3 departures in the world. And you know, 75 departures a minute right now in commercial aviation, 2/3 of which are powered by GE and CFM. So that's pretty resilient as we think about the economy. And then in addition to that, we have a pretty good growth story on military. So it is.
So that's a yes, then?
I'd say it's a strong business model. Very, very strong business model.
One of the things that's going to challenge that business model is the merger of Raytheon and UTC, Pratt & Whitney. It's an $8 billion R&D budget they're going to have at that business. It's a bet on scale. So the question I guess I have to ask you is bigger better?
Well, as you and I have talked about before, any of these mergers have to really create incremental value versus the 2 companies. And of course, you know, I have a lot of respect for Tom and what he's done with Raytheon as well as what Greg's done with UTC. And they're in the process right now of proving the integrated value of the company. When it comes to jet engines, our competition is Pratt & Whitney, and our competition is Rolls-Royce. I feel really good about our positioning relative to either of those competitors right now. And that merger may have scale, but we've got the right technology and engines to be competitive, so I'm not that uncomfortable with it.
Okay, let's turn to the engine behind us, which is going to go on the 777X.
Big guy.
It's a pretty big engine. Biggest engine ever built.
134 inches in diameter. One of the most advanced technology engine in commercial service when this thing goes in.
When is it going to go in? When are we going to certify this? Is the 777X going to fly next year?
It'll fly this year. We will certify this year, and the 777X will fly this year.
And be in service next year?
Service in 2020, yes. Yes. Now, you know as well as I do, we've had an issue on the engine, and so let me just go through that. You know, this engine has 8 engines have been through an incredible amount of testing for certification. We have over 2,700 hours on the motors, 450 flight hours on this engine so far. One of the last tests we do is called a block test, which is we take the engine and we run it way outside of its design operating envelope, and we do it on purpose for a long period of time to make sure that we like the margins of engineering design. When we were doing that test, we found in the front of the compressor, one of the components, we had more wear than we had anticipated. So we're redesigning a little bit in the front of the compressor. We've got to get that wear down, go back on test, prove that we have, and then we'll put that piece inside the engines and we'll be on flight tests. And all of that will be done, you know, in plenty of time for the certification of the engine this year and for the flight test to begin this year.
Let's talk about the Boeing MAX, the 737 MAX. How much longer do you think you are going to be producing engines, along with Safran as part of CFM, for that aircraft? How long does it fly for?
Yeah. Well, I think the MAX is an incredible product. You know, we've been sole source underneath the 737. This is our 3rd generation with CFM. There's over 7,500 aircraft out there right now without the MAX flying. So it is a stalwart of the industry. So I think that the airworthiness will be reestablished on that airplane sooner rather than later. The FAA has a process. They've recently announced that they're going to start their flight test program with Boeing. Once that's done, they'll finish their process and then reestablish airworthiness so deliveries can begin again. We believe that that's going to happen sooner rather than later, and we feel really confident in the airplane.
So you see yourself, along with Safran, CFM, producing engines for that aircraft for what, another 10 years?
Yeah.
Another 20?
Gosh, no, more than 10 years. I believe that thing will fly well into the next decade and beyond. You know, into 2030, 2035, you're going to see MAXes. Let me give you a perspective. In 2029, right?
Yep.
The overhauls in CFM will be 50% LEAP and 50% CFM, the current fleet, in 2030. So it just gives you some perspective of how long the tails are in the service of these airplanes.
One final quick question. Do you think it's the last engine you put on the MAX airframe?
Boy, I tell you, you'd have to ask Boeing. I don't think that they're going to take that airframe for the next generation single aisle past 2030. My own opinion is there'll be some variant of that using their new technologies. They've invested in some tremendous technologies on the 787 and on the 777X, and I imagine those are going to find themselves into that marketplace by the time they're ready to do a new airplane.